Yo guys, what's up? Today I'm doing my first Paramotor Q&A, but Q&As on the ground are freaking boring, so I'm gonna set up and launch, and we're gonna do it up in the air. Let's do it. Put that guy right there. We are in business. What's up, guys? That was rad. So this is my Q&A video. I'll preface this with, in recent months since the new year really, I've seen a lot of growth in this channel. The big thing I've noticed is a lot of people are like, what is this thing? Why have I never heard of this? What is it called? How do I get one? Which one do I get? Before I get into the actual comments, I just want to talk a little bit about paramotors in general. So this is called a paramotor. It's basically a specialized paraglider wing. And we call it a wing or a glider or a paraglider sort of. And this is a motor, the paramotor part, pushes me through the air. It's legal, not going to be arrested or anything like some people asked. In the US, the regulations are very limited. So you don't need a license, you don't legally need training, and there's no age restriction. There are a set of rules under FAR 103. You can check that out to know exactly what regulations apply to us as paramotors. So the first thing I want to address, a lot of people asked, where do I buy gear? What gear do I get? What gear do you fly? People want to get into it, and I totally understand, but I think that's asking the wrong question. Similar to flying an airplane, getting your pilot's license, or skydiving, people don't look at like, what plane do I want to buy? Or what skydiving gear should I get? The first step is training. So you take flight lessons or you go through an AFF course, very similar to paramotors. Just because you don't legally need training, I think the first question you should ask is, where should I get training? You can go on the USPPA website, and that'll give you certified USPPA instructors to get you started. Now there's two companies, I should say, that I've come in direct contact with, and I would totally recommend to anyone else. Those two are Aviator PPG in Florida and Team Fly Halo, and they're out west. I'll put their links in the description, so if you seriously want to get into paramotors, I would definitely recommend checking them out. And then from there, once you get your training, you can have a better feel for what gear would best suit you. As far as wings go, a lot of people are kind of like, you know, I don't want a slow beginner wing. I don't want to feel like it's not maneuverable. But honestly, you're putting yourself in the air, and you want the safest wing you can possibly get as a beginner. Ozone and Dudek are two of the top companies that sell wings right now. So if you want to start looking at wings, check out those two websites. But like I said, once you go through training, you'll have a better feel for what gear is suited for you, and your instructor will be able to help you out with recommendations. So I'm going to open up YouTube right now, and I'm going to scroll just through the top comments and start answering some of your guys' questions. So these are sorted by top comments. Let's see, the first one. I would like to know about emergency procedures, how to deploy the reserve, and also major differences in your wings, what determines what wing you bring out. So the first part about reserves, this little guy right here on my lap is my reserve. It's a round parachute. It's very low tech. Basically, I grab this handle, and that releases a bunch of things. As I pull it out, now I have a parachute on a little tether connected to the handle, and I just throw that out in the air. And I would have to do that if something catastrophic happened to my main glider. I got a huge collapse or something crazy happened, really. Major differences in your wings. I own two wings, and they're very similar. Jacqueline has her Ozone, or her Dudek Universal, and that's a beginner wing. I think that's a topic for another video. I can get into wing design a lot, but basically a beginner wing you're going to be very safe on. It's going to be resistant to collapses, and it's going to be resistant, it's going to be stable. So if you pull this much brake on a beginner wing, you're barely going to feel it. I just pulled a couple inches of brake on this and it yanked me into a turn, and if I yank harder, it'll go upside down basically. So big differences in wings. I primarily fly this one because it's my favorite. Beyond just a big open area with no power lines overhead, what would you look for in a takeoff or landing zone in a new area? especially if no airports are available. So airports, small public airports you can operate from. You cannot launch from a controlled or towered field without permission. That you can do, but it's just kind of too complicated. So small airports that are uncontrolled are normally good to go. It's definitely best to ask the airport owner ahead of time, just so you have prior permission, and even though it's legal, you don't piss anyone off really. Other than that, public parks are normally game. The only thing you have to watch out for is if there's a local ordinance against flying paramotors or any aircraft in the town itself. Also, you have to know airspace, so that's something you will learn in your training course. You have to be aware of what airspace you're flying in, so if you choose a random park, you don't launch into controlled airspace. How practical would it be to fly a paramotor across the country for vacation? If you wanted to fly for Florida, or to Florida for vacation? That's a question a lot of people ask. They're like, man, if I could fly one of these, I would fly it to work. Now, the biggest setback with that, I would say, is paramotors are generally pretty temperamental to weather conditions. So midday flying is doable when there's thermals and heating, but it's going to be very turbulent. You're going to have higher wind speeds, and most paramotors top out at 35, 40 miles an hour. So if you have a headwind of 20 to 30 miles an hour, your ground speed is like a running pace. Generally, I would say paramotors are not suited for cross-country flying. You can do it, but it's more of like a novelty. It's kind of like asking, could I ride a moped across the country? Yeah, you can, but a moped goes 30 miles an hour. You can't ride it in the rain, really. And compared to a paramotor, you have to pay much more attention to the wind conditions. Man, I'm getting cold up here. How much did I spend on my setup? I don't mind sharing. This motor I bought for about $6,000. It was used. This wing I bought for $2,500. It was also used. Brand new, this motor goes somewhere around $8,500, and the wing brand new is about $4,000. So generally, I would say cost to get into the sport, $8,000 to $12,000 for equipment if you're getting brand new stuff, and training anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500. Woody asks, I hear things about sportier wings and turbulence. A guy selling a GTR told me it will cut right through rough air. I feel like the GTR is kind of an exception. From what I've heard, I've never flown the GTR wing, but people say that thing is extremely resistant to collapses. It's just kind of one of the characteristics. But the GTR, generally, like when you go from a beginner to an advanced wing, the more advanced the wing is, the more kind of temperamental it is, and the more dramatic and dynamic collapses will be. But the GTR kind of seems like an exception. This guy says I should get a haircut. Nah, thanks, I'm good. Talk about the paramotor industry a little bit. So one thing I can say about the paramotor industry, it's really weird. People are very dedicated to their brands, and most of the time you'll see an instructor that sells one brand, and they will tell you that that's the best in the world. And really, I don't think there is a best. There's a best for each purpose, but overall, I don't think any paramotor is perfect. People are very brand loyal in the paramotor community. Is there any time during paramotor flight that you feel weightless? If I felt weightless, I would be really scared, because the way a paramotor works is I am loading the wing with tension and gravity through the lines. So if I felt weightless, that means there's no tension on the lines and something's going horribly wrong. You'll see people doing infinity tumbles. That's the only situation I would really say you should feel weightless, because these guys are nuts, and there's only like a handful in the world that can do this kind of maneuver. They actually go like over the wing, like looping, and they would feel weightless. Man, I'm getting cold up here. A lot of people have asked about my mount to the Subaru. Honestly, I don't really know where I got it. It's just like a back rack. I think people use them for hauling deer, like when they hunt, they put deer on them. But I think you can get them at like any trailer supply store. It's nothing fancy. I just ratchet strap my motor down. We're coming up on sunset here, so I'm gonna get through a couple more, and then I'm gonna come in for a landing. Let's scroll. How did I get started in paramotors? I have a video on that, Paravlog number 1, when I first made this Cena helmet and the whole LiveCom idea. I talked about how I got into paramotors. You can check that out. I'll put a little card up there. Are you studying maps to make sure you're flying in correct airspace? Most definitely. That's something that you learn in training, like I said. Very important that you know all that background knowledge. it's not just learning to fly a paramotor, it's learning the laws and the courtesy and everything to do with that. Man, I'm starting to shiver. How's the adrenaline rush? Honestly, I don't really feel adrenaline unless something goes wrong. When I'm doing maneuvers, I feel sort of at peace, I guess. I feel in control. I'm just having fun, really. You get a little bit of adrenaline from it, but nothing insane that gets your heart pumping. That's only if something goes wrong. Do I feel like I am addicted to it? Yes, I do. I fly pretty much every opportunity I can get. I'm shivering, so I'm kind of glad we're getting close to the end here. Is there a legal age or height? No, there's not in the US at least. Best paramotor setup, I touched on that. I don't think there is one. You can get a paramotor that's designed to be the lightest possible. You can get something like the Scout that's designed to feel super neutral and handle torque compensation. So it seems like a lot of motors have like a specific feature that they do really well. Have you ever damaged your wing or motor? I broke one prop a long time ago when I transitioned from my first to my second wing, and yeah, I broke one prop. Never damaged a wing. Is it legal to fly in the suburbs? One thing about that, like I talked about FR 103, the rules that regulate paramotors, one of the rules is that we are not allowed to fly over settlements, towns, or open air assembly of persons or something. So basically, don't fly over houses, don't fly over people, that sort of thing. What is the location of the place that I started to fly? I learned to fly with Aviator PPG, the guys in Florida. I would totally recommend them. I had a good experience, and I honestly think they're one of the top schools in the US. Someone asked if I want to do radio-controlled stuff. I talked about that in another video, and I do eventually. I want to get into mini quads. I used to be big into that stuff before flying, skydiving, and paramotors took over. Still scrolling. Can you fix a collapsed wing? Generally, yes. Like I said in the collapsed wing video, a beginner wing will be very stable and it'll be easy to fix the collapse. There's courses called the SIV courses, where they basically have you fly in safe controlled conditions and you collapse your wing and you learn how the wing reacts and how to fix it. Alrighty, I think that's about all. We're about 5 minutes away from sunset, so I gotta get back to the airport. I'm gonna go ahead and stone my phone. I hope you guys enjoyed that Q&A. If you have more questions, leave them down below, and I will eventually make another Q&A video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Peace out. See you in the next one. The freaking camera's too far away to do the punch lens thing.